Hi everyone, and welcome to this second episode of Crafting Continued. So today I'm going to be showing you how to finger knit. This is something I started doing a few years ago, and I found it's a really nice and quick and easy way of making scarves and blankets and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to show you today is basically just the technique. And if you wanted to, then following this pattern will allow you to make a scarf with just one row of finger knitting in it, and then I'll come back later and show you how to add more rows on. So going to start off with some wool. I've got this sort of blue and gold wool. You can use any wool for this as long as it doesn't have large bobbles on it. Why that becomes a problem will be clear later. I've tried using wool with bobbles on it before, and it's not worth it. So I'm going to start off with this wool, and this is the only thing you're going to need. And I'm going to tie a circle, so I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to double knot it, so I'm going to come back and there we go. And the loop needs to be fairly big. This is going to go over your thumb. Okay, so we have your first sturdy loop. Now that can go on my thumb. So now I have this wool, I'm going to take it behind my first finger, in front of my second, behind my third, and in front of my fourth, and then behind, in front, behind, in front. And so now you have one complete ring on every finger. So I'm going to go around again. Apologies, I just need to pull more wool out. So I'm going to go around again. Keep this second ring you're putting on top of the first ring that you put on. So now I have two rings on each finger. I'm going to go around again, and I'm going to keep going. I'm actually going to use 6 rings because my wool is quite thin. If you have thicker wool, you can do 4, or if you have very thick wool, you can only do 2. Basically, the more times you go around, the tighter the weave will be, in essence. Right, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on every finger. So now I'm going to take the bottom 3 and lift them over the top like that. So bottom 3 and over the top. Bottom 3 and over the top, bottom 3 over the top, bottom 3 over the top. So if you've got thicker wool and you're doing it with just 4 goes round or 2, then you just take 1 or 2 rings. You take half the rings on your finger over the top. Okay, so now we go and put the next on. So again, it's just weaving between the fingers, going in front and behind until you put 3 more, or the same number that you took off, back on. Right, so now I've got my 3, and I'm just going to take them back over the top again. And I'm going to start speeding up now because if you're struggling, you can go back and rewind and watch what I just did again. If you're struggling to understand what I've done, you could also go and watch someone else's video of how they do this. So one of the reasons that I got into finger knitting is that it's really easy to do while you're, say, watching a lecture back. If you're using replay to revise, it's really, I found it very useful to have something I can do with my hands while the lecture was playing, and it actually stopped me from getting distracted with other things that might take up more of my mind, and it was quite productive as well. So See, I've just made a little mistake. That's okay. Just work out which were top, which were bottom, and go back, and that's fine. So now I'm going to show you what I've got on the back of my hand at the moment. So as you can see, I have these kind of, you know, this is the beginning of the material that I'm making. And what you'll end up with is a very long strip of this. So if you look at this and you think that it's kind of too loose for you, or you think it's too dense, you can go back, you can undo it very easily, and you can just start again using more or less turns around each finger to start off with. I'm quite happy with mine, so I'm going to keep going. So what you end up with when you're doing this is a single line of this weave. So on its own that's not very useful, but thankfully it's very, very easy to make multiple lines and then just sew them together using a bit of the same thread and a wool needle, or even your fingers actually. Like the holes are very big, so it's very easy to attach multiple ones together. And there is also a way of knitting a new line or a new row onto an existing row, and that's what you do when you're making a blanket, and I might cover that in a future video. You can also do more fun things using this method. So if you want, you can actually have two balls of wool of different colours, and instead of going, you know, twice round with the same colour wool, you can go once round with each colour wool, and then you can end up with an end product which has two or more colours in it. I've actually tried with 3 colours in the past. When you get up to that, it gets a bit kind of complicated, and it gets a bit tiring working out which you know, which colour's which and where it should be in the pattern. But generally speaking, this is such a, you know, it's a very, very adaptable thing, this is. And there are also patterns online for making all sorts of things, like fingerless gloves and hats. I don't think someone's found a way of making a jumper using this method yet, but I'm sure that will come at some point. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, I've now got fair length going on there. I'm going to keep going for a little bit longer, I think. But as you can see, this is much, you know, you can make something a lot faster using finger knitting than you can using traditional knitting or crochet. Or at least I can make something a lot faster doing finger knitting than I can with traditional knitting or crochet. I'm not the best at either of those, to be honest. But this is very quick and it's very easy. It's really, really great for like Christmas presents and things. You can just make, you know, get a few nice wools. Making a scarf normally takes about like half an hour or so. So you can make a scarf in about half an hour. It's a really nice homemade gift, and you can use people's favourite colours and fun different kinds of wool. As I said, pretty much any kind of wool works. Wools with a bit of elasticity in them are slightly easier to work with. and wools without any bobbles or you know, fancy bits tacked on are definitely best. Because as you can imagine, if you've got bobbles kind of in between your fingers and you're having to pull a loop over the top of a bobble, it can get very difficult very quickly, and I've ended up having to undo lots of things when I've tried to use more fancy wools. That's interesting. Okay, so something a bit odd has gone on for me here. I'm not quite sure what it is. Ah, right, okay, fine. So my loose string basically got caught up in around my little finger. That's fine. It's never happened before. Normally though, I don't have to try and work so that the camera can see what I'm doing. So, 3, not 2. The other important thing to consider with this is the tension. So you kind of want to keep it fairly tight, but obviously you want to be able to you know, lift off each finger. The way I find works best is to put it on when your fingers are wide, and then you can bring your fingers closer together when you need to take off if it's a bit tight. And that creates a little bit more laxity, and that also helps you to be quite uniform with the tension of your thread as you go through, which is especially important when you're working on a larger project like a blanket or something, because if you're using the same wool but you're using a different tension all the way through, then you might end up with different width stripes on your blanket essentially. Okay, so I think I'm coming to the length that I want to be at now, so I'm going to show you how you finish a project. So it's really very simple. I'm just going to grab some scissors. So the most important thing is not to cut it until you have secured it. So what you do is you take your little finger and move it onto your ring finger, and then you pull the ring finger over the top, just like you've been doing before. Take your thumb onto the first finger, pull over the top, and then ring finger onto middle finger, over the top, first finger onto ring finger, over the top, and that's just working towards the middle, and I quite like to do that because I think it makes quite an even end. So then you're going to cut a little bit of length at the end, because you're going to have to tie, so it's very important that you keep these 3 loops together at this point. Then you have your loose end, and you put your loose end through your loops, and then you can let go of the loop. The thread essentially becomes your finger. And then at this point you just find a nice loop, say this one is nicely positioned, and I'm just going to tie around like that. And I'm going to double knot it again. I've never had anything unravel after I've tied it off like this. So there we go. Just one more for luck. And there we go. And then I'll cut that loose end off. And there you go, that is your finger knitted length. Now obviously if you're going for a scarf, make it as long or short as you like, and as you can see that it has this kind of loose appearance to it. Again, that varies depending on the wool you're using and how many times you go round. As I said before, this is quite a thin string, and therefore it's quite a kind of wholly knit that you end up with at the end. But so if I was going to make a scarf, for example, and I wanted it to be a bit wider, I would essentially take these loops here, and I would just stitch them together and go down the whole length, stitching the same loop together as I went down. just with a bit of the same coloured wool, and that would give you something thicker. And that's it. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave any feedback that you have in your comments below, any ideas you have for next time, or anything that you'd like to see me try. Can't promise that I'd be any good at it, but I'm up for anything. So thank you for watching. Have a fantastic week. Bye.